Hello everyone, FPL Raptor here and welcome back to another video on my YouTube channel. In today's video we have my Gameweek 6 transfer plans where I'm discussing my early thoughts around my squad and also whether I might be playing the wildcard this week. If you do enjoy today's video, please do smash that like button. If you're new around here, make sure to subscribe as well. But without further ado, let's jump into it. So guys, as much as I'd love to be sat here saying that this was a brilliant week after the disaster class in Game Week 4, sadly it was another pretty rubbish week. I won't complain too much because it certainly wasn't as bad as Game Week 4, and I am sat here at the time of me recording at least, dependent upon bonus, etc., with a slight green arrow, but considering I'm ranked at 3.8 million, I was hoping for a green arrow and preferably a slightly larger one. It was an interesting week all round really, because after Saturday I was actually about 2.2 million roughly-ish. I didn't check my rank particularly closely, but I'd had a really good week, but I knew obviously I'd benched Gabriel, I didn't have Haaland, and there were other players that could really hurt me from Brighton and Forest, and Sunday couldn't have really gone much worse for me in all honesty, apart from a cheeky little assist for Saka. But my team actually performed quite well, and Erling Haaland only got the one goal, and I can't believe I'm sat here saying that, but one goal feels like a win at the moment, so I can't even really blame Erling Haaland massively for this week, and I'm not too disappointed with my team. I said on Twitter earlier, I just feel a bit lost with FPL at the moment. I feel like I'm largely making good decisions, and I'll hold my hands up, no, Haaland was a pretty awful decision, and I've made other poor decisions as well. I'm not saying my team is perfect, but it's a difficult one because I feel like my ability to reflect on my decisions and work out when I've made a bad decision is actually quite good. It's one of the things that I pride myself on. I can say, yep, that was a bit of a shocker. But when I put my team out this week, I was really happy with it in pretty much every position. So I'm a little bit gutted that it didn't go much better, but there were some real positives. Henderson getting a 9-pointer. He finally comes in with a big performance. And also, he was pretty much solely responsible for that clean sheet. So it wasn't a lucky clean sheet. He performed exceptionally well. 9 points is great. Trent finally delivers a clean sheet and an attacking return with 11 points. I saw some people captained him, so well done if you did that. The rest of the defence was really disappointing because I had Porro, Greaves and Robinson. I'm ending up in a back four because Jota didn't feature. And then Gabriel I had second sub. If you saw on the deadline stream, there was justification behind this, right? If you look at clean sheet odds, Ipswich, believe it or not, had a higher clean sheet odd percentage than Arsenal, and so did Fulham. So in terms of clean sheet odds, Arsenal were bottom. And I also spoke about how good Erling Haaland has been, that I just didn't see a clean sheet for Arsenal. That proved to be correct, by the way. And I also said that in the previous 2 seasons, Gabriel has scored 6 goals in over 6,000 minutes. Gabriel's goal threat is fantastic, but he doesn't tend to score lots of goals. And he's now got back-to-back goals, and I've bloody benched him in both weeks. And there is certainly something to be said for Arsenal are even better from set pieces, it looks like, this season, and they're targeting Gabriel even more. From now on, I won't bench Gabriel. From now on, I won't do it. But I am sad that he's got back-to-back goals on my bench. But maybe that was a misstep. I will admit that maybe there, if neither Greaves looks like he's got a great chance for a clean sheet, or Robinson, or Porro, just start the defender from the best defence in the league who does have some goal threat. So do you know what? I'm not going to complain too much there. Despite me thinking it's quite a freak incident to get back-to-back goals from a centre-back, I probably should have started Gabriel there. The midfield was actually largely pretty decent. Eze, very disappointing. We now know he's probably not on penalties as well. Another performance where he should have returned, though. He had 2 big chances against Manchester United. One of them was an absolute horror miss. So really gutted that Eze didn't return. Saka gets the assist, obviously, for the Gabriel goal. Goes off at half-time due to 10 men. Overall, I still think it was the right decision, keeping Saka. He's got me 2 assists in 2 weeks. Lots of people sold him. That feels like an okay decision. Rodgers finally returns 2 assists. I mean, we needed that. It feels like patience has finally been rewarded. I mean, 9 points after 4 blanks in a row. We probably need more in order for it to have been a good decision. But it does go to show if a player's got good minutes and they are creating chances and getting chances and they're passing the eye test, they do eventually deliver points. And for his price, going out there and getting a 9-pointer, that's absolutely massive. Unfortunately, Salah only got the single assist. And in all honesty, was quite lucky to get that assist, given that it was a Darwin Nunez absolute wonder strike. But he's now had back-to-back pretty disappointing weeks, and he's not also looking particularly good. I think that across the season, for large parts, actually, Salah hasn't performed particularly well. But in those opening 3 games, there were just spells where Salah just turned it on, and so did Liverpool. In this current Liverpool team, Salah doesn't appear to be as important in terms of getting those final goals and assists, because the likes of Luis Diaz are doing that for Liverpool. So I'm not going to complain too much. At least he returned, but he has been a little bit disappointing in the last 2. Jota was the big disappointment, didn't start and didn't get any minutes. I do just apologise, by the way. On the deadline stream, we got information from 2 accounts that had been very reliable in the past that said that Jota was starting. However, it does sound like it was a late change, because then 2 other accounts said that there was a late change. And also, this is a very strange thing to point out, but in Connor Bradley's FPL team, he transferred Jota out at 10:40 a.m. Now, maybe he just forgot to make his transfers until the last second. However, there is a possibility that there genuinely was a last-minute change or little knock to Jota, which meant that he didn't start. Regardless, he didn't play, and then I obviously got Robinson off the bench rather than Gabriel. If I'd have just made the decision to switch those two, it would have been an extra 5 points. And then my 2 transfers in for Game Week 5 were Calvert-Lewin and Watkins. Calvert-Lewin really disappointing. He did have 1 big chance, by the way. He just didn't finish it, which is probably the story of Calvert-Lewin's career for large spells. And Watkins did get the goal. Sadly, didn't get any bonus points, but at least he did return. If you didn't see, by the way, Moniz did get an assist, who was one of my players that I transferred out. If you please go watch the Moniz assist, because what happened is the player kicked the ball at him, he turned his back, it bounced off his bum, and then they finished it. And if I could just sum up my FPL season so far, it's with a Moniz assist off his bum when he's not even looking at the ball. So yeah, I don't feel as negative as last week, given that it's a small green arrow and I've not really lost much further rank. But I'm just sat here, like I said, I just feel a bit lost. I know that sounds really philosophical and deep, but I just don't really know what to do with my team. I promise I will still give you good advice and I will still highlight the players that you should be selecting. But in terms of my own team, there does become a point. Like I said, I'm lost and I think I'm making good decisions. And someone on Twitter said, well, maybe you think you're making good decisions, but you're probably not. And then I'm like, hang on a second, am I not making good decisions? But like if you look at my team, not now, maybe go back and look at the fixtures on paper on the deadline stream, it looked cracking. I was actually feeling pretty confident. So yeah, small green arrow. I would love to know down below in the comments how many points you got in Game Week 5. Did you manage to beat my 62 points? And did you maybe get a cheeky Gabriel goal? I'm still feeling quite upset about that. And now the big decision for me is what do I do with my team moving forward? Does it need a wild card, which I could do still? Do I make 1 transfer? Do I take a hit to bring in Haaland and delay the wild card? I've got lots of possibilities. So let's take a look at that team, try to react objectively and decide what I want to do moving forward. So guys, this is the team as things stand for Game Week 6, and I've never before needed your help like I do now. And when I say your help, preferably can I have some constructive feedback? Don't tell me my team stinks, well, you can tell me my team stinks if you want, but try and honestly, because it's difficult when it's your own team to objectively analyze. Like if you gave me your team and said, does this need a wildcard? It feels a lot easier to make that decision, or does this team need a hit? Should I make this move? But when it's your own team, because you own those players and you're kind of invested in your team and you've picked certain players for certain reasons, it can be difficult to step back and objectively analyze it. So please let me know, if this was your team, what would you do? I obviously have the wild card and I only have 1 free transfer with 3 million in the bank. So I have money in the bank in terms of that flexibility. But because I only have the 1 free transfer, if this team does, in your opinion, need major restructuring, then it is going to be a wild card. I can't do that. I could take a -4 hit, but considering I've got the wildcard anyway, I'm more inclined to say if I'm making 2+ transfers this week, just hit the wildcard button. The annoying thing is, because I've not yet activated the wildcard, I've already missed all of the price changes on Saturday, and there were quite a few. For example, Raya and Mbermo and Luis Diaz all went up, and I might want those 3 on a wildcard. And I'm probably not going to activate the wildcard tonight because I feel like I need to give myself a day to just step back and not let emotion rule my decision making. So for that reason, I'm already going to be missing out on quite a few price changes. And my team value is not good as it is. So yeah, it's not easy to try and work out what to do. But let's go through the team and let me try my best to analyze this objectively. So Henderson off the back of a clean sheet. I still am not very impressed with Crystal Palace, so I do not want Henderson, and I would not have him on a wildcard. And just because he's gone and got a 9-pointer, I don't feel much better about still having him, because Palace were awful defensively. Manchester United created so many opportunities. The reason Henderson hauled is because he had to make so many bloody saves. So he might get the save points, but still not overly happy with that pick. In terms of the back line, I'm actually pretty okay with it. Trent against Wolves is brilliant this week. I have Gabriel, and finally I'm going to be starting Gabriel in my team against Leicester at home. So I've got the Arsenal defence covered. And then I can play one of Porro or Robinson. I'm probably leaning Porro at the moment because I think both teams probably concede. I think Forest and United, in terms of their attacking output, they have been creating chances. But I just feel like Porro is slightly more attacking than Robinson. So at the moment, I'm leaning him. And there seems to be some sort of like psychological safety in starting my premium defenders at the moment. I feel like I've been shown why you don't bench those premium assets. So that back line, It's not perfect. In an ideal world, I'd probably have Raya or Flecken instead of Henderson, and I'd probably have someone else instead of Porro starting this week. But that also, the defence doesn't make me want a wildcard. I'd like to add an Arsenal one, but that in and of itself doesn't warrant a wildcard. The midfield isn't great. In fact, this is probably the weakest area in terms of two positions. Salah is fine for this week. I'll probably captain if I have him. But also, if I was on a wildcard, I'd probably sell him. And this is where it becomes tricky for me because Salah hasn't been particularly good the last 2 weeks. Luis Diaz has outscored him and has looked much better. And there are other really good midfield assets for significantly cheaper. So I don't love the idea of selling Salah, but on a wildcard I probably would. And it's one of the things that's making me want to hold off. Do I give Salah one last hurrah in my team before I move him out? And he's a really nice captaincy option that might end up being genuinely a bit of a differential because everyone else will go Haaland or they'll go Saka for the home fixture. And Salah might be a nice option. But then again, Haaland has just been better than Salah. So why would I want to captain Salah instead of Haaland? But that is the tricky one for me, Salah, because I would have to probably sell him on a wildcard, I think. And we'll talk wildcard, obviously, throughout the week, and maybe a bit in this video as well. Saka's absolutely great. He came off at half-time. Unless we hear something which suggests that was a knock, then I'm pretty happy having Bukayo Saka because he's got 2 back-to-back home fixtures. Even if he doesn't get 90 minutes, I still really like it. And even without Ødegaard, I still think Saka's worth having. And Rodgers, I think, is great, by the way. I think Rodgers at that price, not just because of the assists, I've been saying for a while, good minutes, good fixtures, okay underlying data, passing the eye test. At his price, he's great. So Salah, Saka, Rodgers, fine. Eze is just under-delivering and underperforming. I think it's now 57% he's underperforming his expected goal involvement by. And at some point, you just have to say, Palace aren't finishing their chances. Eze's not quite in a confident run of form. But it is Everton away. So Eze is probably, again, someone that I would not have in a wildcard, especially now that we know that he's probably lost penalties, or at least he's not 100% on penalties. So again, a player that I'd probably sell, but not a player that I feel like I need to rush out this week. I would be happy giving him one more week. And then next week when he plays against Liverpool, then obviously I wouldn't want him any longer. So it's about, do I delay the wildcard by one more week, given that Eze and Salah this week aren't too bad? But again, you don't have to need a wildcard to play it. So I'm saying I don't need a wildcard, but that doesn't necessarily mean that a wildcard wouldn't upgrade my team. By the way, this is a very messy video, but sometimes these videos are helpful to just give you my unfiltered thoughts. So I do find that balance of, I can say I don't need a wildcard or I don't need to use a transfer, but just because you don't need something doesn't mean it's not still worth doing. And then the real issue for me, and regardless of if I wildcard or not, is probably the issue I need to sort, is Diogo Jota, because he got 0 minutes in game week 5. Whether this is due to a small knock, just due to general rotation, whether he starts again in game week 6, for me, he's an issue because he's not playing a lot of minutes anyway. He's still only getting like a maximum of 70 minutes in a game. And there are so many other good midfielders in and around that price, like a Brian Mbeumo or even a cheaper price as a Semenyo. I'll show you in a second some of the players that I'm considering. So Diogo Jota for me just doesn't feel like a good keep. So overall, that midfield isn't perfect. And I think on a wild card, I probably wouldn't have Eze, I wouldn't have Salah, I don't think, and I wouldn't have Jota. And Rodgers wouldn't be starting for me every week. He'd be like a backup. So I might go as far as changing 3 or 4 of these midfielders, and I would bring in, like I said, the likes of an Mbeumo, the likes of a Semenyo, who have much better fixtures this week, and also are performing and delivering the points. But it's also not a bad midfield. The forward line, well, because I made 2 transfers last week and I knew that I might not want to wildcard in Game Week 6, I'm pretty happy with that forward line of Calvert-Lewin against Crystal Palace at home, a bit of a clash with Henderson, but it's okay, and then Ollie Watkins against Ipswich away. So overall, that front line for me is actually very, very strong. It doesn't have Erling Haaland, though. And I guess this comes back to the key question of, do I want a wildcard? It really is to bring in Erling Haaland. If I had Haaland in my team, I wouldn't even be considering a wildcard. And now there is a possibility, and I'll show this in a second, where I could just do Salah and Cannon to Tyler Dibbling and Haaland. Right? So I can get Haaland in for a -4, and Tyler Dibbling, by the way, who's not a bad 5th midfielder. But then I'm taking a -4 to remove Salah when I've got the wildcard in my back pocket. And in all honesty, even if I make that switch, I might then want a wildcard in Game Week 7 anyway. So why would I not just move the wildcard 1 week forward? I almost feel like if I want to bring in Haaland this week, I should just activate the wildcard. But if you ignore the fact that there's no Erling Haaland, yes, I know João Pedro's been very good. Welbeck returned again this week, but Calvert-Lewin and Watkins for me are right up there as 2 of the best. I would like to get Chris Wood in there now that we know he's on penalties. But you can't always have everyone, and you can't have the perfect team every week. And if I just look at those 2 in isolation, I'm pretty happy with them. Even the bench of Robinson and Greaves is okay. So I guess what I'm saying, and this might just be me not being able to spot that my team is bad, I actually think this is a really good team for Game Week 6. I would go as far as saying it's a brilliant team for Game Week 6, bar a couple of issues. Eze's not been performing, Henderson's maybe not great. I obviously don't have Haaland and Jota needs replacing. But if you replace Jota, which we'll discuss in a second, I'm not sure it's far off from being a really good team. But again, please do let me know if I'm just being blinded by the fact that I've had a bad season and I can't see that this team needs a wild card. So that's where I stand at the moment. Let's firstly take a look at if I don't wildcard, who might I replace Jota with, which is the current plan. And then if I do wildcard, I'm going to kind of show you how many players I would end up changing. And that might give us a better idea of whether I need to play the wildcard this week. So guys, as I said, if I don't wildcard this week, and I'm really on the edge, but at the moment I'm probably still leaning that I might not wildcard, it probably is Jota that stands out as the big issue to replace in my team. I could, of course, just roll the transfer and either start Jota and hope he does something, or play a back four, which is a possibility. Again, let me know down below if you think I should do that. But I kind of am on the side of, if he looks unlikely to start, and we're not sure if he's going to, and we're not sure how good the minutes are, there are some really high upside picks that I could go for this week. In terms of who I'm really looking at, it's mainly Semenyo and Mbeumo. I think both of them have home fixtures. They're both shown this season that they've got great underlying data. Their returns have been good as well. So it's not just the data. And as a data-driven manager, sometimes I can over-rely on data. They're also returning and they look in good form. Semenyo was very unlucky not to get at least one, potentially even two returns against Liverpool in Gameweek 5. And Mbeumo is just ticking along really nicely. We know that he's on pens. We think he is. I should say, we should never say now that we know someone's on pens, but I think he's probably on pens. And the fixtures coming up are really good. And if I even decided to delay the wildcard beyond 7, Mbeumo's a really nice shout. Sadly, he's already risen once this week, so I've already missed out a little bit. But those two stand out to me as the best possible replacements, probably for Diogo Jota. But then there are other options. I could, if Jota looks unlikely to start or he looks like he's an issue, I could just make the switch from Jota to Luis Diaz. It's a bit sideways and doesn't fill me with that much excitement. But Luis Diaz is now the top scoring midfielder in the game, 51 points in 5 weeks. That needs to turn our heads. That needs to give serious consideration to him being brought in as a transfer. So that's a possibility. I then could target Man City with someone like a Savinho, whichever way you want to call him, or bring in someone even like a Phil Foden if we think he could start. Or a Doku. If we get early team news, because City are the early kickoff, I believe, in Gameweek 6, then that's a possibility. Or, now that Trossard's been suspended, assuming that gets upheld, Martinelli actually put in an absolutely brilliant performance in Gameweek 5, by the way, against Manchester City. His defensive work was exceptional. I think he could even be a decent shout against Leicester. Not many people are going to own Martinelli in their team, so he could be a cheeky one-week punt, but that would probably force me into a Gameweek 7 wildcard. And then Jared Bowen. Brentford are actually the second worst defence in the league this season for underlying data. So Brentford, for all they are going forward, and as good as Mbeumo is, I do wonder if someone like a Jared Bowen could even be an okay shout. I think regardless of what happens at the moment, I think I am looking at a Game Week 6 or Game Week 7 wildcard. So it's really a one-week punt. And so at that stage, I'm just looking at that single fixture that you can see on your screen, not looking beyond that. And so I can't really overlook at the moment probably Semenyo, Mbeumo or Martinelli. And I need to think about if I even want to make the transfer. Because like I said, there is definitely a school of thought that just stick with your team, ride it through Game Week 6, and then go obviously into a wildcard in 7. And that would mean that going into Game Week 8, I'd have the 2 free transfers if I didn't use one this week. So that's where I stand at the moment with transfers. This is where the team is as things stand without any. Please do let me know if I need to wildcard or not in your opinion. And now I'm going to go and take a look at, if I were to wildcard, how many players would I change? And therefore, does it justify using this week? So guys, for this section, it's going to be a really messy live stream format section. So feel free to click off if you just want the structured, more professional stuff. And please do subscribe if you do click off now and like the video. But I just wanted to I will have a wildcard draft later this week. And I'll also talk about wildcard on FPL therapy. I've got Chunks on, which is a really exciting guest for me. He's on his wildcard. I might be as well. So FPL therapy will be built around wildcard as well this week. So there'll be plenty of proper wildcard discussion. But I just wanted to think, if I were to wildcard, how many changes would I make? And would that really strengthen my team this week? So I've not really thought through what I'm going to do in this section. But the first thing I would do is bring in that Norwegian fraud, because I guess he's actually quite good at football, up to 15.3 million. I mean, it's been a disaster. Not only have I not got all of those, 63 points he's on now, but on top of that, I've also lost 0.3 million on him. So anyway, Haaland would be coming in. Sadly, I think I would have to lose Watkins. I mean, I'll leave him in for now, but I just think pricing-wise, I've had a quick look at wildcards. I don't think I can, and again, because my team value isn't great and the other players I want to squeeze in, I probably couldn't quite afford to have Ollie Watkins in there. So I'll leave him for now, but let's do, so Saka will stay, Gabriel will stay. I probably would want David Raya, just based on what we're seeing at the moment. He's absolutely brilliant, great for bonus points, so many saves. So those would be my 3 Arsenal. I think I would want to keep Trent if I can possibly. Porro would be less concerned with keeping, but I would... Let's just say for now I don't have Porro, because I think it's going to be difficult to squeeze in all the assets I want to. At 4.5 million, there are lots of possibilities in terms of defenders that you might want to bring in. I mean, there's still... I think the fixtures are still there to target someone like an Ezri Konsa. He's not going to go out there and get you a goal every week, but he's still a pretty decent shout. You could even go for someone like a Colwill. Chelsea's defence looks a lot better at the moment. I'll leave that spot for now, but there are a few... I mean, you could even go for a Brentford defender if you wanted, but I'll leave that for now. Jota, I think, might become Luis Diaz. The thing is with Liverpool's fixtures, though, they're not brilliant longer term. And I do worry about Diaz's minutes. 90, great, but then 71, 65, 60, 71. He's returning in the minutes, and that's the key thing. But I do wonder if I might want a slightly more nailed midfielder in there. But Eze would probably be going for me. I'd bring in Brian Mbeumo. And I think Salah would be out. Sadly, again, I'd like to have him, but I don't think I'd be able to squeeze him in. And I'll put Semenyo in that spot for now. So this is currently where we're at. I think immediately you can see that Watkins probably isn't a viable option. Let's just put in... it might not be Konsa, by the way. Let's just put in Konsa for now. I could get maybe a Solanke squeezed into that spot there. Or maybe I just go for someone like a Chris Wood, because he's on penalties. The fixtures are actually really decent for Forest coming up. And for everything that I've criticised Chris Wood for in the past, and I have, I don't really love watching him as a footballer. Every time I watch him, I feel frustrated. But the minutes have been okay. The attacking output's there. The underlying data is still really solid. 0.55 XG per 90. I mean, a bit of that is a penalty, but that could be a decent shout. That leaves me with 1.3 million in the bank. So I think I've got my triple Arsenal. I've got Luis Diaz. I've got Trent. I've got Haaland in there. It might be that I decide to leave that money, or I just decide, you know what, I want to upgrade one of my defender spots back to someone like a Pedro Porro. So, I mean, this isn't necessarily the exact wildcard I'd go for, but this is maybe along the rough lines of it. So I'll try not to actually make these transfers. I'm not sure. I mean, a wildcard does improve my team. I'm just not sure that it massively improves my team this week. I'd have to lose Salah, who I don't desperately want to lose. I'd have to lose Ollie Watkins, who's got Ipswich this week. Eze and Henderson have an okay fixture against Everton, although I don't really mind losing them as much. I am gaining a lot of players that have performed very well. Haaland would be the key one. But I'm still hesitant to sit here and say that's a great move. I probably would remove Robinson as well. I'd probably move him to another defender at 4.5. But again, we'll go through some of the better defenders. Maybe even someone like an Ola Aina, given how good Nottingham Forest have been defensively. And he's so good for bonus points. Let me know. Maybe I'm missing off some key players from the wildcard here. But I don't know that necessarily. I mean, you could go for like a Carvalho instead of Morgan Rogers if you wanted to in the midfield. His minutes were okay, got 86 minutes against Spurs, so at the cheaper price, he might be the one to go for. But we're talking about really minimal stuff here, and Morgan Rogers has Ipswich this week. So I don't know. I guess what I'm saying, like if I go back to my team, in place this week, I have Salah, who's a great captaincy option. Trent's great already. Gabriel and Saka, I've already got 2 of my 3 Arsenal. Calvert-Lewin, Watkins, Rogers got really good fixtures. Eze and Henderson, if I had to rely on them, they've not got an awful fixture this week. I don't think my team's that bad. So I'm trying to talk myself into not wildcard. Again, it comes back to Erling Haaland. Like, if he's going to keep continuing to do what he's doing, and Newcastle have looked so bad. They conceded 3 goals to Fulham. And Fulham haven't necessarily shown great attacking data thus far this season. I just feel like that could be another monster score. And I'm starting at a massive disadvantage every week. Every time Haaland scores 1, 2, 3 goals. It's just almost like stopping the bleeding at this stage, I guess. I will just show you, like I said, I do have the option of doing Cannon to Erling Haaland. And then I would sell Salah for... No, that's Jota. I was like, well, I can't afford that. Then I would sell Salah for someone like Tyler Dibbling. I could even potentially afford, assuming no price changes, which I haven't really checked, I could even afford a Carvalho if I wanted to. But I'd probably just get Tyler Dibbling, and then I would just play a 3-4-3. The issue is I then have Jota as well, and if we don't think Jota's going to start, I could play Dibbling instead, but then I might also have to take a -8 to remove Diogo Jota, and then I've still got some of the other issues. So yeah, I still am of the opinion probably at the moment that if I want Haaland, it's going to be activating the wildcard. So yeah, people kept saying, I guess, like, why are you not looking at wildcard this week? Like, why wait? Like, price changes are happening. You don't own Haaland. Your rank's in the bin. Like, why are you waiting? Maybe it's just blind faith, but this team doesn't feel like... When I wildcard out of a team, when I wildcard out of a team, I want the fixtures that week to look rough. And I think next week, you've got double Palace against Liverpool. You've got, it's not a bad fixture, by the way, but Villa against Manchester United isn't as good as Villa against Ipswich. Again, not a bad fixture, but my triple Liverpool going to Crystal Palace. I think this week, yeah, it goes into Newcastle, for Dominic Calvert-Lewin. My team doesn't look awful in Game Week 7 either, but it just feels like a more natural progression out of my team, even as far as the bench. Like Robinson plays against Man City in Game Week 7. And also, whilst Erling Haaland isn't bad against Newcastle, Fulham at home really feels like the entry point for him. Like, I feel like I can't go into that fixture without him, especially given that it's a home fixture. So I'll leave it there. Incredibly messy video. I do apologise, but just based on my team, please let me know. And also, drop a like and a comment down below just to show some support. I would really appreciate it. So guys, there you have it. That is my Game Week 6 Transfer Plans Wildcard Special, complete rant about my disaster of a season thus far. And if you have enjoyed this video and you're still watching at this point, please can I ask you to drop a like to show some support. Drop a comment down below as well to feed those algorithm gods. And if you've not yet subscribed, but you've watched to this point, please do consider subscribing. Until next time, thank you very much. Bye-bye.